Welcome, welcome. Thank you again for joining us for part three of this Divine Feminine series. And if you're new here, welcome to the Sanctum of Integration. This is a collective space for wisdom, healing, embodiment, all the things that Nino and I absolutely could talk about all day, every day. So, as I mentioned, this is part three of a deep dive series that Nino and I wanted to do on what is Divine Feminine, all things what she is, what she isn't, how it interplays with our self energetic dynamics. And now today we're gonna bring the whole thing back home and talk about how understanding how your divine feminine essence or how that role, if you choose to carry that role, plays out in relationships. Every relationship of our life is going to have an energetic dance. And so, in understanding your divine feminine energy and your balance of internal masculine and feminine, understanding that and understanding how you balance relationships, influence relationships, and see changes and results happen in your life and in your relationships because you better understand your divine feminine essence. So, Nino, why don't you start us off with giving us some examples of how your divine feminine dynamic shows up in your everyday life and your everyday relationships? Because you and I both know that this has a romantic aspect to it, but it also doesn't. So, care to divulge in either direction for us?
Absolutely. And first, thank you for having me here and just for introducing this topic in such a lovely way. We have been talking about the divine feminine for so long, just in our personal conversations. So to have this here to share with community and our listeners here, it's just super fun. And I'm excited for the continuation of this conversation, especially when we start looking at how it really impacts every area of our lives to know where we're sitting, like what camp we resonate with. And for me, when I look at the way the divine feminine essence plays and interplays with every area of my life, I mentioned in the last video how it shows up at work. Me, especially being in a more masculine dominant role and field, it's very obvious to me that I am not masculine and I am very, very feminine. And in other areas of my life, like if I look at my family relationships, I can tell that I definitely am that feminine essence because I'm in so much receivership and I allow my family to really just adore me and cherish me. And it's less about how much can I earn their love, but it also shows me that when I am in such a receptive mode, I also want to do more for my family, but from a more rooted, grounded place. It's not like this reaching, I need to do all of this to prove to them that I love them, to prove to them that I'm worthy to receive their love. It is rather from the fullness of being loved, the fullness of being in my divine feminine and in my receivership that there is this give and take, this outpouring of myself that I can give in a way that doesn't feel depleting. And this is definitely something that is different compared to when I was not in my feminine and not even like conscious of the divine feminine as something that I could aspire to or that I could devote myself to. I was more in the masculine, and when I was in that masculine of do, how much can I do? And being in more of a obligatory role and a duty role, especially as a Hispanic woman, we are kind of like drilled into duty. That was the surefire way for me to never be fulfilled. And since I've been in my feminine essence, since I've really allowed the divine feminine to move through me and devoting myself to it, it just feels so much softer and so much richer to be in relationship with family. Even in my workspaces, I'm seeing where I'm provided for in a way that none of the other women there are being provided for because they're more in their masculine and more in their like proving or more in their wounded selves, the wounded feminine selves, rather than taking ownership of, I'm a woman and I'm a divine feminine woman, and this is how I operate and flow in the world. You could definitely see the difference in those aspects. And of course, in relationships, I would say the more I've gone into my divine feminine um, ownership, like actually claiming this, the more I have felt an ease as far as security and relationship, the more I have felt that my desires are actually there to help me and they're rightful. They're not something that I need to run away from or that I need to hide or force, but rather it's something that because it's coming up in my awareness, then I know that there's medicine there for me. And being in that divine feminine really allows me to go into surrender to that itself. I don't have to run from it. And I can allow myself to like die at the altar of my desires and at the altar of my femininity, right? And I've said a lot, but I would really love to hear like one, how are you seeing the divine feminine really play into your life and your relationships, whether it's career, um, your romantic relationship, your platonic friendships, your family, like what does that look like for you? And can you give me, in the same vein, how it was before you claimed your divine feminine role and now since you've been in it and you've been working through it for a while?
Yeah, I'd love to share. First, I'd like to say I really resonate with what you shared. I appreciate how you mentioned that since understanding greater awareness of your divine feminine essence, relationships feel richer. You talked a lot more about the way it felt to be in communion with others, in not in a sense of, like you said, what you're doing for each other or in the context of the relationship, whether it was family or workplace or doesn't matter the dynamic. You made it very clear that what was noticeable was the feelings that came up and the soothing richness of how the relationship became more authentic, more deep, more beneficial, but not always in like the practical ways that we so often are being told to demand in relationship with others. And so I love that you did the very divine feminine thing of easing and surrendering into what does being divine feminine offer me in this relationship? How can I let it, how can I receive, like you said, receivership? So that was a really great point there. I would say I find I agree with you wholeheartedly in that awareness is probably the majority of the work in understanding how our energy dynamics affect with others. Um, I used to be incredibly unaware of how my masculine dominance of do, push strained my relationships because I was so wholeheartedly fixated on look at me doing, improving, and showing you all of the things that I want to provide you in this relationship, whether it was at my job or with a partner or family members, all the things. I was frustrated at noticing that my giving wasn't being received because it wasn't coming from my natural feminine essence. It was coming from pushing and doing and proving. And it actually very seldom got the appreciation or recognition that I thought it ought to in that particular context. And so after being just blown away of like, and so frustrated of like, why aren't these people in my life understanding how much I care and how much I do for this relationship? And I realized it was because it wasn't coming from authenticity. When I really started to appreciate my feminine, and then, like you said, receiving instead of doing to prove or doing to reciprocate, the receivership in itself is a divine feminine essence that I, I, I almost just want to say like magically elevates appreciation and gratitude in relationship because when you can enhance that feminine strength of gratitude, receivership, and appreciation of thank you so much for this act of kindness you provided, or this, great conversation, anything. It can be as big or small as you want it. The divine feminine's ability to elevate receivership and gratitude makes the relationship juicier because then, like you said, you both want to continue to give in a richer way because it's coming from this more balanced place. One thing that I find very interesting, I think it's an interesting caveat in my awareness building of my dynamic, my dynamic with others is knowing where in relationship I'm more the feminine and more the masculine. And I find this funny because as much as I absolutely try to keep the divine feminine as the overarching energetic premise, in my intimate relationship, it is incredibly important that I be as soft and as feminine as possible. Like divine feminine essence is what makes this relationship flow. But in, say, the context of my mother and I, who happen to be business partners, my mother is the feminine and I'm very much the masculine in our business dynamic because I am the structure to her creativity. And that dynamic is really beautiful because it works for us, and I don't go so masculine that I lose my overarching nurturing and loving connection with my mother as feminines. You know what I mean? And so we've worked really hard to balance that, knowing that that's the role I play in that context. And it gets to be okay there because it's a healthy, balanced dynamic. And I still am a divine feminine overall. That's just where I lean into my masculine, and that kind of soothes my structural doing, like get stuff done itch, without training me, without putting it in a context of relationship that causes friction. And so what I've learned to do is almost sort myself into a little bit of different hats where, in this relationship, I get to be a little more masculine. In this relationship, that's very much a hindrance or a tension creator in our relationship. So I like to stay way, way more in a feminine dynamic. And so awareness is key to it all because I get to pick and choose how I consciously navigate, which then allows others to do the same because they feel me adjusting and deciding consciously where my energy dominance lies. Do you notice that in your relationships via work, home, partnerships, where you kind of get to weave in and out of your masculine a little more?
Yes, I would definitely say that there's maybe less consciously for me than the way that you described it, but there's definitely this like post awareness. Like I'm noticing after the fact where I have adjusted a little bit based off of the other person's dominant essence that they're giving. And also I would say that we talked about it in the last video how there are layers to all of this, right? Just noticing that you can kind of shift the degree to which you are more or less feminine depending on who you're with or depending on, what your environment is. There's nothing wrong with being able to weave in and out of, a higher portrayal of the feminine essence and or maybe a higher portrayal of the masculine essence when we talk about flowing and surrender versus structure and kind of holding and containing, right? But the feminine gets to have both because we are multidimensional. We are meant to hold space and as much as that we are meant to flow through the space. Literally, if you look at I'm going to go to biology here where we were not going into biology last time, but you literally see the feminine body and she is meant to be a container for life. And so when we say that we're going in and out of masculine structure versus feminine flow, yes and no, right? Because the feminine still gets to provide structure, but she provides structure in a very different manner, in a way that can still flow and is still life giving and still in a provisional way. It's just different. And the way that we do it is so different than a masculine, like a full on masculine structure, right? The more logical, the more um, piercing. When you say you're creating structure in your business with your mom, like you're probably not, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Penetrating her in a way that's like very aggressive. You're probably just being like, here's some scaffolding, mom, for us to really be able to operate this in as fluid a way as we want. But here's the scaffolding to make sure that we have the structure, the protections, the safety bars, just like a mother would for her children. I'm going to put these safety bars, not because I'm full on masculine structure, but because I'm providing boundaries for life to continue, right? So, you know, we could peel that as many times as we want, again, because there's so many layers to this. And that is a problem with trying to put these concepts in very limited verbiage, right? Um, so there's that. And again, I would say, to answer your question though, I definitely weave in and out of degrees of feminine essence that I am emanating. And the way that that looks is less conscious than me going out there and saying, with this person or in this dynamic, I have to be more in this mode. It's more of, and I hate to make it less practical, but it's more of a feeling sense of, you naturally know where to move and how to flow in this, and whether or not your flow needs to be faster or slower, if it needs to trickle, if it needs to be quieter and softer based off of the nervous system that you're feeling from the other person. And so this is where you can really go back and forth between, even in like a relationship, we talk about biological relating, we talk about polarity. The only thing that matters here is, do the two people that are relating to each other have harmony? And so, whether you're in your divine feminine or you're in a more masculine role, the only thing that matters is where the other person is in relation to you and how that harmonizes or doesn't.
Wow. So you perfectly segue into the next question I was going to ask, which is, rather than exploring, what are the signs of when a relationship is balanced or imbalanced, you already answered in a sense of, and this just goes to show the level of your intuitive maturity of, for you, it's a lot less conscious and a lot more intuitive of, I'm receiving, I'm listening, I'm feeling for the way my energy is interacting with theirs. And so my revised question to you in this would be is, when you feel some disharmony in a relationship, whether it's because one of you is out of balance personally, like internally, there's something going on inside of you, or you're noticing that because of a change in the dynamics, now something doesn't feel so harmonious. What do you do, or what would you suggest to our listeners to help, more so moving past just noticing or feeling tension? What would you do about it? What would you do to adjust or not adjust this tension that you're feeling isn't in a balanced relationship?
Yeah, that's a really great question, actually, and one that I have worked with in my own relationship over, the last, I've been with my partner for 3 years now, and I've had a plethora of different phases in our relationship where this has really been something that I have worked through. And I would first say the number one thing that you can do for yourself is to resource. And so for me, it's okay, you have your awareness, and now you have to go within. You have to drop in and down to really feel the field of this dynamic for yourself. And you have to remove what you are hearing in the external world of what should be happening in your relationship dynamics. Because a lot of the the nervous system dysregulation in relationships has to do with the conditioning and the societal expectations of what it should look like. You need to throw that out the window, especially if you're going to be in your divine feminine or your divine masculine. You have to throw all of that out the window and go back into that feeling sense. So get aware of, okay, there's a disharmony here. Retreat in a way that's not like I'm running away, but more of, I am taking a pause to re-strategize, and not strategize to get something, but the strategizing is, you have the conscious awareness, and now I need the spiritual inner awareness of what's going on here. And remembering that if you're a biological female, then you also have your hormones to think about and how that affects how you're feeling about anything at any given time, right? But let's say that, hormones not being the case here, get within, slow down, really feel into where is this disharmony coming from? What is the root of this disharmony? Is it really something that is actually actively happening, like in the external world, that is the problem? Or is there a story behind what is happening in the world that is triggering something in me that feels disharmonious? Because now you're going to get into, is it nervous system dysregulation? Is it narrative? Or is it a real problem
Wow,
that now you have to decide how you're going to navigate?
you so beautifully broke that into three categories that I honestly hadn't put much conception to. When you said, like you said, dropping in and down, because a lot of my tension in relationships comes when I'm very much in my head. But asking yourself, does this tension feel like repeat those three? It was
Is it a nervous system dysregulation? Is it a narrative? Or is it a real problem?
wow. Those are three really beautiful, simple categories to help you almost really clearly decide what direction to do to soothe this disharmony, whatever it may be. Because like you said, a lot of times it is it's something we thought we should believe or thought we should have or thought we should experience because someone or something else suggested that. But I just love that the clarity that brings of like when I sit back and pause into why I'm feeling this tension, those categories allow you to choose a direction that you can feel authentically led to go deeper down. That was great. I also believe that you gave a really perfect little segue into mentioning to our viewers that part of why we want to talk about this is to help shed some of the conditioning around what a divine feminine is and what she does and what she does in relationships, because I absolutely bought into a lot of that at first. And a lot of it was just how I happened to come across the concept of divine feminine and energy in relationships. And it became this thing about manifesting and getting attracting these things in your life you want and getting a specific person and having this beautiful unbreakable relationship dynamic. And so I'll admit that I was absolutely guilty of getting sucked into the things people tell you a divine feminine should be or what you should get as a result of if you're doing it right. And so I think you and I very clearly dispelled that throughout this whole series, that one, it's not really about anybody else first. It's about how this is residing and balancing in me, and this awareness and maturity concept of what is divine feminine for me and how do I want to consciously move through the world as this role or this essence matters more. And so I will say that even though maybe I got off on the wrong foot in discovering what divine feminine was and trying to utilize it as a strategy for an end game, what I so beautifully discovered or like was transformed into along the way is that no, this is absolutely about me and how much more in depth I can make my own experience. And so, in choosing to rehone my focus in on that in my divine feminine essence, a lot of other things sorted themselves out, mostly because I was aware that it was a narrative problem or it was a nervous system problem of my own, or or yes, maybe this is a real life problem that's much smaller than I had originally thought it to be. And so I think you and I both agree that there's just a lot out there to be more discerning of when you're taking in information about this, to decide, does this feel right for me, or is this about getting something that I desire? And I think you also had mentioned that you have a beautiful way of framing desires and how they come up and why we might get caught up in this trap of be a divine feminine to do this or get this or have this person, and having those desires, and even if they're coming from a wounded place, means a particular thing. What might you have to say about not only just what's out there in terms of information, but in terms of where the focus is in a divine feminine journey and how it helps or hinders the process.
Yeah, that's really great. I'm glad that you brought up all of the reasons why we even got into the divine feminine devotion in the first place, right? And for all of our listeners, how you get on this path is perfect for you. How you get on this path is exactly what you needed to be on this path. I'm a firm believer that our wounds and our desires are a path to where we're going, right? Our desires are an invitation, and it is actually what allows us to heal. If you didn't desire something better for yourself, you would never be here. And yes, sometimes our desires come from the wounding and come from trying to get something, which is why some people go into, manifestation and doing all the techniques and trying to force something to happen. Because if I just tried harder, then I would get all the things that I need, right? That's what we're told. If you just do all of these things, then you're going to get exactly what you want. Yes and no. Those things are a vehicle that are an invitation to your true healing. So, your baseline desires, before they become divine desires, they're there to allow your healing. Desires heal. The way that you get there obviously matters, but it is perfect and it is also divine in the way that that path kind of, flows out. And from there, now you can start really being in that place where your desires become divine. Your desires are dreaming you, you are dreaming your desires, and they're no longer coming from a root of wounding. Now they're fuller, they're more magnificent because they're no longer needed for healing, they're now needed for expansion.
Ooh, I love that. And to me, they feel truer. My desires now compared to me 5 or 6 years ago, my desires feel based in truth and truth of who I am, not just these, like you said, all these conditions or rules or nervous system triggers and conditions that make me believe I should want this. But even when they were there, like you said, they led me down the way. And so all of that is okay.
Yeah, and that's why I do say that your desires are for healing. Like the desire itself is the medicine that you need to take, or just at least the indication and the invitation to take the medicine. And now we can really go into divine feminine, divine union, whatever you want to call it, the bigger picture that's only available to you after you've dealt with the roots, the weeds, the thing that's unhealthy. And now you can really enjoy life and be in real receivership and in real providership, depending on which side of the house you're in, right? And you asked me another part of this question as far as I suppose the journey that got us here, and I'll briefly say the reason why I'm on this journey is because of my partner, and it was coming from a place of woundedness, of abandonment, self-abandonment, and a narrative there where I finally figured out I wanted to do something about where I was at because I was tired of feeling triggered and hopeless. And so I turned to, oracle card readings and tarot and, all of the manifestation stuff. And it was deeply healing for a moment, but then it triggered the heck out of me because I wasn't getting what I wanted, what I was supposed to get. And then I was like, oh, wait, there's more to this. There's something deeper here. Let me actually do the inner work. And slowly but surely, the nervous system dysregulation dissipated. The wounding started to heal. I really started to become whole again, one with myself again. And then this really impacted my relationship. Had I been in the manifestation route any longer, had I been in this like nervous system dysregulation any longer, I would not be with my partner anymore. And that would have been fine, but I would have been still triggered and like repeating patterns. Now I get to really see and take that moment of, "Oh, I am triggered right now. What is going on here? Let's go deep into this." And from there, I don't involve my partner in when I'm triggered until after I've dealt with my resourcing, with the narrative that was really brought up from there. And then I can decide from there, does this even need to be something that I make my partner aware of? Or have I resourced myself enough knowing that this is my wound, that there's just another layer that I get to deal with my inner masculine? And, you know, I really resonate with God as father, God as divine masculine. So for me, it's my inner masculine plus my relationship with God Father, God the Father. I go there first. And if that hasn't, once that is established and resolved, if there's a real problem that needs to be addressed, I'm now coming into that with full resourcing, wholeness, security. And now I'm not like grasping to receive and get something, force something out from my partner. And this is, I've been saying it, with relation to my partner, but it's really all of my relationships with men, with other women, like my mom, my grandmother, my sister, my female friends. Like they're so much richer because of the work that from a wounded self led me to the divine feminine path that has really just enhanced all of my relationships in all of the right ways.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I love how you bring us back to the first episode where it was about how you're almost taking the surrender moment of, whoa, like I'm feeling tension, I'm feeling triggered. Let me surrender into this process of discovering what it is going on inside of me, which in then turn leads to the strength, the immense strength that it takes to resource yourself and take care of it yourself. Not to say that we can't co-regulate with others, but to say that like this is my job first. Going within, that takes a lot of strength and it takes a lot of courage that many people are afraid to do. And so you bring us back to surrender, strength, and then that wholeness of like, let my inner divine masculine and feminine work this out for myself because I am one person taking care of myself. And then let me energetically lead now because I've come to terms with this myself. And I will say that I've absolutely noticed in my relationships how when I follow that process, much like you do, where I pause, I let myself feel this and let myself sort through this because I can do it for myself. I can use my own internal energetic dynamics to truly get to the bottom of this. And then, like you said, address forward from there. But in my energetic shift of myself, a lot of things sort themselves out. A lot of relationship problems tend to smooth and fizzle themselves out just from my own perspective change, just from taking the time to do it for myself and then bring it to, say, like you said, a partner and things like that. Because like you said, if I were still trying to pursue my relationship, which we might as well kind of round this thing out in a sense of all of us adults love to pursue a romantic connection or an intimate partnership. And that is absolutely how my divine feminine journey began too. I tend to call mine a twin flame journey, but I think wholeheartedly you and I can agree that we both understand that the divine inner union of all that is self, all that is divine feminine, became the most important part of the journey, regardless of where it started, regardless of the fact that I call it a twin flame journey and you call it a soulmate connection or a divine union with a partner. We're both becoming the same beautiful thing, which is divine feminine, in this process of seeking energetic balance with another. And so it's like you said, all of the desires, all of the triggers, all of the wounds were perfectly laid along the path to help us get where we are, which is the understanding that the most important part of it all is me being a divine feminine and you being your divine feminine, regardless of who it's with, as much as we might like it to be with a particular someone, the journey, the focal point of the journey shifts along the way. And like I said, I think just because this is a great kind of distinction point where this can matter to not only a twin flame audience, but other audiences that we both work with, we both serve, and we both want to build community with, that it doesn't necessarily matter what you call it, what you label it. The fact that we've so deeply sought what the divine feminine essence is for each of us has truly led us to who we are, has developed us and matured us into these leaders of these kinds of communities. And so I just think it's beautiful that we can have a conversation about divine feminine that doesn't have to split off in these two hard forks, just because to me, the part of my journey, my mission as a divine feminine is to embody that for the sake of a twin flame union. And yours is for other things, yet they are the same. You know, we might call them different, but you and I both know exactly what our hearts long for in a divine union, you know. And so I think it's beautiful that the conversation isn't about division, it's about the fact that we're talking about the same thing. So I think at this point, now would be a great time to mention that in all of our exploration of all things divine feminine, and knowing that you can have these different facets, such as twin flame journey, workplace dynamics, family relationship harmonies and things, or as Nino so amazingly suggested earlier, retreating to self and deciding what dynamics in me need to be soothed. Do I need more nervous system work? Do I need to challenge my belief systems? Or do I have a real 3D life human problem that I can reach for practical tools and help to solve? And so if you're looking for support in understanding your own divine feminine dynamic, maybe you're not sure if you are one and you have more questions, or maybe you're sure, but there's an area of your life that you're still struggling to hit that sweet spot, hit that embodiment spot of, wow, look at how being a divine feminine has made these changes in my life simply because that's who I want to be, not because I'm trying to get something. We would love to both take a second to tell you where you can find more of us. We are so excited to stay here together in the sanctum. This is a Nino and I thing, where this is where we get to share our juicy conversations with you. And we'll get to the why in a minute. But just so you know, the sanctum of integration isn't going anywhere. But Nino, where can audiences that want to dive deeper into this all things beautiful Mother Mary, soft feminine era, divine essence, nurturing like motherhood, that is all things Nino, where can our audience find you in more places?
Yeah, thank you, Lux. Right now, I am primarily on Instagram, so Enchanted Life without the E for enchanted. So it's just N as in the letter N, Chanted Life. That's on Instagram. I also have a website, same name, but you'll also be able to just click the bio link for the website. I'm doing a little bit of blogging there, but that's kind of scattered. And I also do this vocal awakening work and just vocal attunement work that I'm starting to trickle into my YouTube channel. All of the places are Enchanted Life. And that's how you can reach me right now.
Beautiful. And as I mentioned in part two, Nino is also so gorgeously serving in her local community as well. So even if you can't necessarily get a hold of us locally, just know that we are both people that want to reach out and serve our communities virtually and in person. And so with that, I will say that I am always available via email at luxmartinintegration@gmail, because I would love to build a one-on-one relationship with people looking for specific coaching on how to integrate something, a topic such as being a divine feminine, so beautifully into all you are yourself, that you want that one-on-one feedback and back and forth on how to make this change stick in your life. And then my main jam is YouTube right now. I do have a TikTok and some other things that I dabble in, but I really love getting on video. I love my voice notes playlist. That is the smoothest and my favorite way to drop content right now is via my playlist, Voice Notes by Lux.
It's
And
amazing.
it's fun. It's a riot, and I do most of them like on the fly when when they drop in, usually while I'm driving. But yeah, you get a little more of that real raw, real feel Lux. And I think that's about it for me, just mostly the YouTube channel and of course the email for one-on-one contact, as well as one last thing. Uh, I would love for you to, if you found this curious, interesting, you would love to dive more, email me to get on the wait list for my Divine Feminine membership. This is going to be great because, again, it's not just about twin flame Divine Feminines, it's about all of us that resonate as Divine Feminines, because the content that I want to talk about is relevant to you as a Divine Feminine, not just your specific person, not just your twin flame counterpart, not just your soulmate, or all the things you are seeking for in life. It's about who you are as a Divine Feminine. So this is going to be a beautiful, juicy membership where we're going to get raw and real about real life Divine Feminine. So I'm excited for that. If you'd like to get on the wait list, email me. So, Nino, you knew this was coming. I was going to drop the big finale on you because I know you're going to just hit this in a home run. You and I have spent 3 videos now. Like, we're talking a couple of hours, several hours now between our own personal conversations and recorded time conversations about all that is Divine Feminine. What what does this truly matter? What does being a Divine Feminine really matter to you? What would it matter to any of our listeners? That what's the true benefit of understanding this concept and then choosing to emanate it and live your life in it? What is that? What is that bottom line meaning for you of why we've spent all this time talking about this?
Yeah, I think I'll preface this with whatever I say here is still just brushing the surface, right?
Truly.
And no matter how much we have talked about the divine feminine, we are still just brushing the surface. And that I think is really what speaks to how important the divine feminine essence is in the world. We have experienced so much of the masculine and so much of the wounded feminine in the world that we need the divine feminine to be alive, to be well, to be embraced. And this is what is going to lead the next generation, right? We've already seen it in, the last couple of generations where the more we allow the divine feminine to really awaken in our lives, the more we are seeing depths of nurturing, depth of spiritual awakening, depth in, the way that we take care of the world, the way that we take care of the earth, the land, each other. And I think the divine feminine, because she is so nurturing, because she is life giving and life affirming, if you resonate with the divine feminine as a role, as an essence, then you're very much so needed right now. And this we're only just now getting to know the fullness and the rawness of what it is to be life-giving in a way that's, unimposing, in a way that's actually going to benefit society, the world, because we have so many ideas as a feminine, so much space for creation. Like our essence as divine feminine women, or people, like the creational aspect will forever be something that is going to impact the next generation. It is a legacy that we're leaving others. And for me, why the heck this matters? Life matters. So to be in the divine feminine, to affirm life through our essence, through our beingness, through the way that we walk in the world, and by like removing all of the other conditioning of what the feminine was made to look like or made to be in a box in, you obliterate all of those things, and now you can see what creation was always meant to be, like the
Wow.
divine creation.
Mind blown. I love it. Truly, you bring about the fact that it's so purpose driven, it's so service oriented, and there are so many great people stepping up and into this essence in the world now, and we're seeing changes. It's necessary, it's needed. It's what I believe it's what God is calling us to do, calling us forward into. And you just so beautifully put it in that light of like, yeah, it's about that your life matters. It's about your living, your being matters, not necessarily in your doing, but in your energetic being. And that has beauty and value and purpose. And like you said, it's very needed in changing the world right now. So, wow, finale accomplished.
I have to ask you, what do you want the listeners to take away from this entire video series? Like, if there's one thing that you can leave our listeners with, why does this matter? Why why? Like just
Right.
what do we want to leave them with?
Well, firstly, I hope that anybody listening out there had as much fun as we did talking about it. Which I know you agree with me. Like, we just have so much fun talking about this. And like you said, as much as we've talked about it, we've only just scratched the surface. And so, because it's so energizing and fun to continue diving into this, it's fun. I want to keep doing it. I want to keep talking about it. But for me, like the gets me in the feels kind of part of like why this matters so much to me, why divine femininity matters so much to me, is because of how it changed my life. Like, not necessarily, it's not about how becoming a divine feminine got me the dream life, the dream house, the dream career, the dream, like, it's not about what it made my life in that 3D sense. It's about it completely changed my life, as in me like 6 7 years ago would have gone life down a certain trajectory. And since I discovered this journey and appreciating it and evolving and growing into it, I feel like an entirely new woman, and I feel like I'm on this whole new path now. And it's simply because of embracing me and what I am, and kind of growing more into my own skin. And I'm just so in love with it sounds silly. I'm so in love with me and who I've become in this discovering of all that is divine feminine, that's what I want to share with the world. I want to share how good living in your authentic energy, whether that's divine feminine or not, whatever it is, if you're here with us, you're here to resonate as a divine feminine because you've got this far, you feel called to it, obviously. But just, I could talk from the rooftops about it all day, about how it's changed me. Like, it's made me remember all that I am. And I love it. I love existing in the world, come what may, whether I, have a dream life or, have all of the wonderful manifestation things. I could live the rest of this life being absolutely content and happy because of who I am, because divine feminine has taught me to appreciate and create and love from that space, which was that's how you win the game to me. So it I could talk all day about how profoundly it has changed my life of who I am, not what I have in life. And that's perfectly great. So yeah, not as poetic as yours, not as deep, but I just can't believe how this divine feminine journey has profoundly evolved me, and I love where it went, you know? So, do you have any other well wishes for our beautiful listeners who made it all the way to part 3 of this divine feminine series?
Yeah, I would just love for you guys, girls, ladies, whatever you are, for all of you to just put your comments down below. Let us know in any of the videos what impacted you, what you are burning to know more about, like whatever questions you have, whatever insights came up. If you just want to share your story, we're here for community. We want to hear from you. We want to not just like talk at you. We could talk with each other all day long, and we love that. But we want to expand. And that's what the divine feminine is about too, right? The divine feminine is community. It is expansion. It is the village that we create. And I would love to just connect with more divine feminines in this path, in this journey. So leave your comments below, reach out to us. We would love, love, love to hear from you. And if you want more content like this, obviously ask us for it, because Sanctum of Integration is going to continue. We want to serve people in whatever way that you guys want to be served. So let us know what you want. We're here, and this allows us to be both in receivership of receiving you and your desires, but also to be in providership of providing the resources of being life-giving in the content that we create together. This is about community, and I'm just really excited to see your journey and to see where it takes us and how we can really just enhance the web of life between all of us.
I could not have said it better myself. That was awesome. Yes, please. We want to get a conversation going, and we would love your feedback on some more juicy topics that for all things that is in the sanctum. So thank you all so much for being here, especially if you made it through all three parts. We hope you benefited from this. We hope that you grew, or at least are prompted to explore as a person as a result of our conversation. So let us know if that was the case. Let us know what else you want to hear from, and we'll see you all again next time in the sanctum. Thank you. Take care.